Look, you need to buy clothes from Fraternity of Giants. There's no two ways about it. I don't talk about this a whole lot, but I worked in the apparel business and the fitness apparel business for quite a few years. I don't talk about it a lot here because I don't want to seem like a clout chaser, but I was the founder and co-owner of Hate Brand Goods for several years. So I say that to say that with Fraternity of Giants, I'm seeing a lot of things done right. I'm seeing a lot of things that I've seen be successful and I've seen be genuine work. And I'm seeing the pirate captain, Hayden Ballio, the man at the helm of Fraternity of Giants. I'm seeing him do a lot of those things right. He's emphasizing quality. He's making good stuff. He's not just rushing things out because he thinks it's clever or he wants to make a buck. He's making good quality stuff. The designs are good. He's putting time, money, effort into design. And also he's engaging with the people that are into this stuff, that like it. He's not just doing it over their heads. Like the people that are into strength, that are these giants, the kind of people that live big like this, that are into strongman, powerlifting, Highland Games, strength, everything, all of it. If you're into a strong lifestyle, the Fraternity of Giants is creating this kind of content and they're creating this vibe for those people and they're paying attention. So I just see that kind of stuff being done right. It makes me happy to be involved, to do whatever I can to help. Hayden's a friend. He's a good dude. I like working with people that are good people. I've got, that's a thing that sticks with me. I got to work with people who are actually quality, that I can't work with garbage people. And that is not a problem at all. Plus, pretty good thrower if you haven't checked out his number. So go to fogapparel.com, Fraternity of Giants, use code HEAVYLIGHT, buy some of that really good stuff. You are not going to regret it. All right, we're going to call this, a mini episode, miniature episode. I put out a post on social media just asking for if people have questions about stones in the Highland Games. I've noticed in coaching and in just, being around the sport for as long as I have, that people have a really emotional, visceral relationship with the stones. Either it's like and it just really is true. And I know you could say this about a lot of events, but I really do see this more with stones. Maybe it's because in the traditional order, it starts the day. But either some people just kind of comes natural and they dig it and they like it. I was one of those people. Or they just absolutely despise them and think they're the devil. And if you threw shot put at any point in your past life, as a high school athlete, as a college athlete, or beyond, you probably are okay with stones because it's just shot put. It's a standing throw and then it's a full throw. I get that. But it's a contentious relationship. There's two really entrenched camps out there about stones. And I loved it to start with because, it was simple. It made the most sense. And there was less between me and the implement. It felt more like a baseball throw and I could kind of put things together. It was just fun. It's easier to practice, I guess, and the weights and the hammers. I guess that's a nice part about it. But so what I did is I just put out, hey, you got questions? Does anybody have questions? Because I coach a lot of athletes in the stones and, I thought it may be helpful to just see what's on people's minds out there. So I said I would answer some in comments. I'd answer some in podcast format. So here we are. Also, 3 tequilas into the evening. It's a Thursday. What do you want from me? It's a Thursday. I don't have a real job. I just have several not so real jobs. And, I felt like podcasting. I felt like answering questions about stones. Some fun people reply. You're all fun people. Even if I don't know you personally, you're all fun people because you're replying to stuff and you're asking questions. And I appreciate that. But we're 3 tequilas in and we're about to be, we're already into a scotch. So, we'll see what comes out. You'll hear a lot more slurring, a lot more stuttering, a lot more stammering, a lot more bad ideas come out most likely. I don't know if you're going to get more bad ideas than usual, honestly. I think it'll probably be right on track for a number of bad ideas coming out. They just may be slightly more slurred. All right, so yeah, I got a cool portrait mode picture of me up there throwing stone. And like I said, I'll kind of read this. I'll read the post here. So Braemar open stone come naturally to some people, for others they're a frustrating mystery. So simple in concept, yet so complex in execution. This many years into throwing, a surprising amount of my stonework still focuses on the standing throw. It's also a big part of the programming in heavy light throwing. I didn't throw shot in high school or college, so I had to figure a lot of this out as an adult taking up Highland Games as a hobby, probably just like a lot of you. And that is true. All of that is true. I didn't lie on social media. I would never, ever lie to you on social media. In person, absolutely. Yeah, just lying piece of shit, totally. But never on Instagram or Facebook. I would never do that to you. Twitter, take your chances. Coin flip. So, what are the questions that came in? Let's see. Can we do this in chronological order? Is that possible? Newest. There we go. I'm going to look on Facebook first. God help us. See what we can get out of that. Yeah, for sure be slower, Facebook. Somebody break up this monopoly, right? All right. Ryan Pope, heavy light athlete. Stone is the devil. Ryan, I know you got a tough... You're one of the people, man. You're one of the people that just... It does not come naturally. This simplistic idea of throwing a stone, putting a stone, it turns into a maniacal nightmare that gets complicated on the way out and it just doesn't sink how you think. I get it, man. I understand it. But you've made incredible progress, dude. And you working on improving your strength and athleticism. There it is. There's the tequila right there. Athleticism. It's only going to help, dude. So yeah, you're on the way, but I get it, man. They're frustrating. You feel the way, all you people out there that despise the stones, you feel the way about stones that I feel about like caber. Like that's never going to make sense to me. Sorry. Like I can do it once in a while and get lucky. Or just maybe hit one the right way, but it's never going to feel right. It's never going to feel like something my body should be doing. Chance Kyle says, initiating the standing throw with the back foot, firing the chain upwards, and coiling the spring, quote unquote, is lost on me. That back leg feels so loaded that I can't, for the life of me, turn that knee through hard to initiate. I basically just use it to push, and on that foot knee, rotate through late. Yeah, so that's a thing, and there's some misconception there too. On the standing throw. In particular, I mean, the pictures of me doing the standing throw, so I understand how that came to the front of your mind there, Chance. A big problem that I see with a lot of people, especially in the newer ranks, is that I don't want to say it's like necessarily bad that you completely ground your right foot. But a lot of people are really, really heavy in the heel and really, really flat-footed. For a right-handed thrower, your back foot, your rear foot, your stone side foot, that you really ground it flat and you're too much on the heel. And, for a moment when you're rocking back to fire, you're getting dynamic, and that may be one thing you're missing, by the way, is you may start too static, and that can really make it hard to feel like you're moving at all. But you might ground that foot too much. In general, you should be thinking about, as the throw is progressing, you should be pushing through the ball of your foot, through the front part of your foot, and your heel should sort of be coming up because you're flexing your calf, you're extending that right side, and you're moving everything up and forward. You're twisting that, you're turning that, you're pushing that hip through. So that should be happening. The grounding of the foot can definitely be a thing. I think some people overemphasize the turning and the cranking in of the right foot and the knee. I've moved away from that. I still prescribe a lot of 1-2 drills, which is just, a standing throw where you're kind of loaded back. You initiate the turn of the right knee, kind of the push of the right knee and foot, and then you send the upper body. I think that's very useful from a neurological standpoint. I think that really does a good job of getting people to think about how the throw is supposed to feel. But if you really watch a standing throw happen, it's really kind of initiated with the left arm. And I know that sounds like verboten to say that, but it looks that way. It's not actually that way. With my athletes and what I was taught and what works for me is to think about initiating by pushing through your rear leg for a right-handed thrower, your right leg. Push down into the earth, create that force and connection and feel yourself pressing down into the earth. And that's going to start the motion of getting that, through the ball of your foot. Think about pushing, through literally the balls of your feet. Like push down into the earth, initiate that way and start pushing with that rear leg like that. And think about at the same time, you want your knee and your hip turning to where you're going to throw. While you're doing that, the left is not your upper body, your front hand, your block side and everything is not doing anything. Like you're just, and you almost, if you're watching that, that's why I say like it looks like the throw starts with the left hand or with the left arm or like the non-throwing arm, whatever. I don't know why I'm so accommodating to lefties. Y'all are weird. Just do your normal thing where you have to reverse the polarity of everything I say, right? But it looks like that. But if like what the thrower should be feeling is an initiation with the right where they're pressing into the ground and creating that push and that tension right there with that rear leg, with that right leg. They should be feeling that. And then once that kind of reaches like I almost want to say a boiling point, you really just think about turning that right knee and that right hip towards to where you're throwing. Don't collapse it in. I think a lot of people do that. They turn it so far that it collapses. They really try to crank it so hard. But that turn will kind of happen as you begin to initiate. Then when you let some of that tension go and you start to initiate with the left arm, the non-throwing arm, the block side, when you start to do that, then you're all turning the right direction and everything's kind of coming uncorked right there. So it's not like everybody expects it to be like separation at the standing throw. They expect it to be this like my bottom half goes and then my left half just completely snaps uncoiled and then it goes. Like that's kind of the principle, but it's really on a standing throw, it's much more in concert. The upper and lower are a little more in concert than they would be on like other, like away for distance movement. There's going to be some bigger separation happening just because it's so far away from you and everything. And you're going to have that like long kind of snap through of the finish that happens. Like it doesn't happen that way in a standing throw because there's just not that much dynamic motion that's happening. So that's a lot. I get that. Like I know that's a ton to get into in the very first question there, but it covers a lot in that, you know. So Chance's question is that it's hard to feel it, like how to load that leg, get unloaded enough to fire it. My advice there would be all that stuff that I said, obviously, like think about, don't ground yourself and push through the whole foot or anything like that. And don't think about grinding and squashing the bug before you do anything else, because then your knee is going to be in a weird position. You're not going to have bone stacking. Your joints aren't going to be have good. You're not going to be stable. Like you're not going to have all the good stuff happening for you to transfer force up from the ground, right? But along with that, get some rhythm. A lot of people start from a really static position where they're like leaned back over their right and they're sitting there waiting and then they decide to go. Like rock back and forth. You'll see me, I kind of rock back and forth like I have mental problems. Like I've got like something's wrong or like I've taken a drug or something. Like I'll get the stone in and then I'm just kind of rocking back and forth. You can almost hear me on the microphone like if that's giving you a audio visual there, that I kind of rock. And then when I'm ready to go, I step out to what the position is going to be, and then I initiate the throw. I step out, load, and then go. The rhythm is so important, and I see so many people that do so many non-rhythmic things with a standing throw. Like they'll like squat like corkscrew straight down and then come straight back up. You got to have some rhythm. You got to have some dynamic movement to the throw. It can't just be this static like stand up and press sort of thing. So that's, if I had to guess, you probably need a little bit more rhythm in the throw, Chance, but also like don't overemphasize twisting that right in or your right foot for you super hard and then trying to make everything work behind that. Just initiate by pushing into the ground. All right, William Lee, open stone is dumb. I hate moving. I've seen William throw many times. I can vouch for the fact that he does not like moving. He is, as I've said many, many times, there are three types of throwers really, but two primary ones, throwers that like to move their feet and throwers that like it when you don't have to. William is in the latter camp for sure. He is very strong though. Sean Ing says, 4 years into throwing, my stones are my best events. I train with a 30-pound stone. Cool, man. Don't train with super overweight stones thinking it's going to translate and make you a better stone thrower. I hear that so many times, and I'm not trying to shit on you, Sean, but like you. Yeah, I am. Fuck it. But you're kind of saying it as like a pride point or whatever. Like that's not a good idea. These are explosive, dynamic movements. Like it's not a strength contest. This isn't like who can put the biggest stone. You can go to Portland and try that if you want to. But this is not a who can put the biggest stone, and it does not translate. I'll ask you this much: Have you ever seen an Olympic caliber shot put thrower throw a 30-pound shot? I'll wait here for days. I'll publish this while I'm still talking, get it out to the world, and then if you want to come here while I'm waiting and come tell me that I'm wrong, I'll wait right here. How long do you think that'll take? I guess I could start publishing right now. It's going to get complicated, technically complicated, but you get my point. No one does that. Don't train with that. Look, I train with a 15 pounder. I have a couple 16 pounders. And for my heavy stone work, I don't even call it Braemar stone work. For heavy stone work, I train with a 20. Most of the time, I'm going to see 20 to 26, somewhere in that. 22 to 26 in that range is what I'm going to see. I train underweight more often than I train overweight. It doesn't translate because what you need to make something go far is to make it go fast. And if you don't train your body to go fast, it will not be able to make things go fast. Do you need a certain amount of strength to make heavier implements go? Yeah, absolutely. That's what the weight room's for. Do you sometimes need heavier implements slightly in order to work on positional strength or to reinforce position in throwing? Yes, I happen to write that in a book, and I've supported that with a lot of throwers that have worked in that system and gained a lot from that. But throwing a 30-pound stone because when I get to the 16, it'll feel so light, does not translate, and it's not something that a top thrower is going to do. So that is near and dear to my heart. You can tell I'm very passionate about that. Maybe I'm just really passionate about shitting on one particular guy, but I've never met Sean. He's probably a really, really good dude. John Logan Van Buren. Hey, have more fucking names, John. It's so frustrating with you, John. It's so frustrating. You know? Like, John's a perfectly good name. Logan's a perfectly good name. You could even be Van Buren. I mean, you have to have all four out there. Honestly, it's reckless. You know what it is? It's taking a lot of people's names and just using them for your own means to meet your own ends. And I tell you, man, it's selfish. It's reckless. It's chaotic is what it is. Too many names. How can I be expected to read that? After as drunk as I am, how can I be expected to read that many letters? It's unacceptable, man. Also the whitest name on the planet. And that's coming from a very, very white man. John Logan Van Buren. It's very white. Congratulations, honestly, on the whiteness of that name. Because if I see a job application, this is so fucking bad. And I've worked in human resources, that's going to make this worse. But if I see a John Logan Van Buren come through, I assume two things. He's just putting in an application because his dad already knows somebody. And he just had to do the application. But his dad donated a wing to the hospital or whatever. So it's a technicality. Or I'm thinking this just got lost. This guy's obviously, this is for a financial firm downtown. That's so bad. It's terrible. But he says, hey, John, how's it going, man? By the way, from a technical standpoint and not necessarily numbers, who's your favorite person to watch throw stones? That's a really good question, man. That's a fun one. Not throwing anymore, Matthew Vincent. Matt Vincent. He was so goddamn smooth. And in the early days, right when he was going amateur to pro, he and I were kind of like buddies hanging out and getting into Highland games and everything. And I threw with him and Andy and a couple other people, his brother Andy and a couple other people. And the first time I watched Matt throw in person, I was like, oh, that's what an actual thrower looks like. And he's just real technical. He had a collegiate shot background, but I could tell he took it seriously because I've met other collegiate shot throwers out there that their skill deteriorates quickly after they're not throwing anymore, and it doesn't look that quality. Matt always had really, really good quality movement, and he was always on his toes. He was always on the balls of his feet. Even fucking heavyweight for distance, he was on the balls of his feet, which is fucking bullshit that anybody can do that, Matt. But Matt was really fun to throw. Fun to watch throw in the stones. I really, really enjoyed watching that a lot. I like watching, I thought about this earlier when you wrote that question. It's totally slipped out of my mind now. Who do I like watching throw stones now? Oh, Gary Randolph. Gary Bear, Throwbros athlete, Gary Randolph. Really pretty stone throws. Really good, violent finish, but really smooth. I really like watching him throw stones. That's fun. It's really fun to watch Spencer throw Braemar because he's got a short stroke, which you would not expect from a lot of higher end throwers. You think they're going to get as much like as a long a push as they can. But like if I've watched lots of video, and he's actually even coached me a little bit on my Braemar to kind of shorten me up, that like with those bigger stones to like shorten it up and just have like a shorter stroke and more of a rock and fire. And it actually works really well. But it's really fun to watch him because the stone just looks like it goes from 0 to 1,000,000 miles an hour in a second on a Braemar. That's really fun to watch. He's really fun to watch with that. Yeah, that's got to be the ones I say. And then Jeremy Gillingham, who, hey, no one asked you, Gilly, by the way. He was asking me, the host, Gilly. He was asking me. But you answered. You said Nathan Burchett is fun to watch. For the same reason everybody else, you like watching, everybody likes watching Nathan Burchett throw anything. He's fucking fast as lightning. He moves super fast, and it's fun to watch. And he's technical, and it's really fun to watch. His brother Isaac is really fun to watch, too. He's got a big sweeping leg kick. At least he did way back when he was throwing a lot more. But Isaac had a really fun one to watch, too. He was fun to watch throw the stones. Let's see. What else we got here? Ken Korchak, another heavy light athlete, says, I can't get my glide up. Should I switch to MSA? Oh, the classic. Should I glide or should I spin conversation? And Ken knows the score here. We talk about this a lot, kind of off podcast stuff. Ken, I think you're a glider, man, but I think there's no harm in it. I think there's no harm in giving it a shot. The thing is, when you get experienced, and at the level that Ken is, he's been throwing enough, you're going to do one technique for a long time, and then you're going to get familiar with the other one, and this is interchangeable with both, and then you're going to try it, and then be like, holy shit, that's going farther. You know, like my stones are coming out better now. Man, I should switch to this. That will happen. When you go and try the different technique for the first practice, maybe 2, it'll feel fucking great. The reason, in my estimation, I'm not saying this is fact, but this is my theory on why that happens, is because you go back to a better power position because you don't know what the fuck you're doing in the rest of that throw. But you do know by the time you're a little experienced, you know what a power position feels like. Or if you don't, if you're terrible at finding the power position, sometimes changing the style of your throw for a practice gets you into a better power position or wraps you up more and gets you doing all that stuff I was talking about before in the standing throw. So you're just everything, no matter what style you throw, whether it's a fucking cartwheel or not, shout out to David Morgan, no matter whether it's a cartwheel or not, like whatever the fuck it is, it's just a rolling start with momentum to the standing throw is what it is. I've said that a million times on this podcast and everywhere else. That's all it is a rolling start into that. And sometimes when you change techniques, you just simplify your rolling start, or you take your brain and all the bullshit you're doing with your feet out of it, and you just get to a power position and you throw. Odds are, if you'd have just maybe taken a real big standing throw or like maybe a little shuffle to a standing throw, you might have done just as well. So that's a hard pill to swallow too. I invite anybody that's out there that's struggling, like, should I glide? Should I MSA? Take a big sideways skip and try to keep a wrap and throw it, and you'll probably throw just as far as either one right there. Because when we're in a certain distance range, really what we're doing is we're splitting hairs. Like really, what you should be doing is continuing to work on your strength and explosiveness, and you should work on having a great delivery. And for most Highland Games athletes who we are not specialists in the shot put, that can be enough a lot of times. I have won games, and I have been at championship games where I have stood my first open stone, sometimes my first 2, because I know that I can hit a stand that's over 40 feet when I'm in shape. I know that, and that's enough to get me on the board and keep me safe. Sometimes that's all there is that day. Sometimes the other techniques are just bullshit, and I don't have them. Is it boring? Sure. Fucking father of 3 in the suburbs. I'm okay with boring, obviously. But if it's effective, it's fine. So, to Ken's question, though. Can't get my glide up. Should I switch to MSA? Maybe is the answer. Maybe is the answer, because 2 reasons. The first one's very simple. The first one is it's a fucking hobby. And if you think you'll have more fun doing the other way, you should do the other way. No matter what I, as your coach or anybody else says, it's your fucking hobby. It's your thing that you want to do. And if you want to try it, you should fucking do it, because who cares? Like, there's no scholarship dollars on the line. You're not disappointing anybody besides yourself, maybe. So fucking do it. It's a hobby. Do what you think is fun. If you'd rather spin, do that. I think you should. But the other reason is you're so inexperienced, and we all are comparatively to somebody, again, that specializes in the shot put, that you can gain things by cross-training the two. That you can, you may physically and mentally or cue-wise pick up things from doing one for a while, and then that carries back over to the other one because you improved some things, whether it's in your overall pacing, whether the way you grip the stone, how secure your wrap is, how secure you keep the stone in your neck. Those things can all come back, and those can be synergistic. They can all work. I have kept both techniques in my arsenal forever. I've been primarily a glider for a lot of my prime years, quote unquote, just because it was more consistent and it traveled. The glide is nice because it requires, you need to kind of be on, and you need to be a little poppy, and you need to be strong and a little explosive to do it. But it's kind of conditions proof and stone proof. If I'm gonna put my hand more under it and just make sure it doesn't fucking fall out. It's a little more, it travels a little bit better than any, but the MSA is also kind of a safe play. I full spin now just for the reason I told you, reason number one, it's fucking fun. I like it. I like working on it. I like the puzzle. And if I eat shit and throw 32 feet, I don't give a shit. I'm in that great position now. But the MSA is kind of a safe bet. Really, the MSA is kind of like a long step. Really, it's taking a big step and throwing and rotating kind of because you have to get back in the right position. I think you should try both. I think you should switch back and forth freely. But when it comes time to start your season, or you got games that you care about, lock in on one and get good at it for a while. Don't be in the constant switch back and forth as you're getting ready for stuff you care about. Lock in on a technique and work it. Really, really get after it. But there's nothing wrong with cross-training across both. It's, as I'm fond of saying, it's a sport that takes place within yards of a funnel cake stand. So, don't worry too much about what you're doing in practice and how it's going to come across or how it's going to play out in the long term. Take the training seriously, but don't kill yourself about the outcome, because the training is the thing in this. That's what you got to understand. The training is it. Going to the games is just getting to play and have fun. So take the training seriously, but whether my glide goes well or my MSA doesn't go well, it's don't beat yourself up on that. Did you learn some stuff in the process? Did you have fun? Did you get out? Did you throw? Were you active? Did you get your blood pumping? Did you get some sun? Yeah, awesome. The training is it. The training is what's developing you here. The competitions and how your style of throw goes doesn't matter that much. So, cool message, Mike. Let's go to Instagram. Ted Van Vleck says, "What are you using your hair to make it look so full and soft?" I don't know, man. Buckets of jizz. Arturo says, "What was the Eureka moment that helped you break 40 feet consistently?" I like this question because 40 feet is for amateurs and for people that are non-shot putters, that's I know what I'm fucking doing number. And that's really the best way I can say it, because I've tried to quantify these numbers and these distances forever. And that's really the best way I can quantify that one. 40 feet is just, I fucking know what I'm doing. It's unquestionable that I'm not an elite shot putter. I may not be high level, but I'm strong enough, or I throw well enough to at least not look like I don't know what I'm fucking doing anymore. I won't be cast into the group of people that don't know what they're doing anymore. That's what you're looking for. You're just looking, 40 is like avoiding embarrassment. It's just, it exempts you from embarrassment in an amateur class if you're over that. It's oh yeah, you're just one of the people that can throw. That's all you're looking for. You just want to hide. You want to hide out in the crowd of people that are not embarrassed with how bad they threw. That's what 40 does. That's why 40 is so sought after as an amateur. But what was the Eureka moment? Look, I hit over 40 my second season. And then I went a long time, a full season almost or more, without hitting it again. And I hit it on a glide because I was, contrary to my own advice, I started off wanting to spin, which was dumb because I had no throwing background. And I was Matt Vincent spins, and I threw with him. I'll fucking spin. I'm athletic. I throw a baseball and stuff. Doesn't work that way. So, yeah, I got it on a glide in Greenville, South Carolina. I think it was my second season. And I was throwing in an A group. I always remember it. I threw that, and nobody knew who I was around there. And it wasn't like, it was an amateur A group, but I think the winning throws were like 44 or 45, something like that. And nobody knew who I was at all. I just kind of flown into Greenville, like visiting my buddy Aaron. We threw in a Highland Games. And I remember like standing back as they were looking over, because they all knew each other up there. It's the Southeast, and they were, I think in that group were like, it was like Shane Sutherland and Tucker Turner, David Robinson was in that group. Like, I just remember like a few of the guys, Joe Wilson. And I remember like didn't know anybody. I was just kind of back getting my stuff together at the trig, and they were all off in the field looking at the tablature, and they saw like a 41, 42, so whatever it was I threw. And I just remember everybody started looking around like, who the fuck, what, who? Like, oh, okay. And it wasn't like, oh my God, what a mind-blowing number. It's just like, there's another dude in that not embarrassed about his throwing. Like when you're over 40 and and like the winning throws 45 or whatever, like you're keeping track of the people that are in that neighborhood, and then nobody's keeping track of me because they didn't know me. So, and maybe that's how this whole thing should have stayed. Maybe nobody should be keeping track of me because they don't know me. Maybe that would be better if we did it that way. So I'm not answering this question at all, but the Eureka Moment. So I got to it early, and then it's like I started learning enough to be dangerous to myself and my progress, and I got just ass backwards for a while. Probably tried to spin for too long, probably went back and forth too much between glide and spin, and just it kind of languished for a while. And I've never been that strong, so I couldn't just rely on that. Even if I was gliding well, I couldn't just rely on that. Like, oh, I'll just get to the front and I'll be able to pop one out because I got a 480 bench press. Like I've never been that guy. So I think the thing that made it start happening consistently, and this was probably 2014, 15, maybe. Not like that matters to the story at all. But man, there wasn't a Eureka moment. I guess that's the frustrating part. And it's like, I think you are looking for that. And this is something I've dealt with, and I think every thrower deals with, is you get a new cue when you're talking to somebody, or you get some coaching, or you throw with people and you get a new cue and it kind of feels good, but you're like, okay, I need to practice that. But you realize like, oh my God, that finally makes sense. Like, oh, my right foot doing this, or being on the ball, the foot here, or like, oh, I wasn't keeping my wrap here. If I can, that's the cue. That's the thing that's going to do it. I'm throwing like 37.6 now is my PR or whatever. And now this is what's going to get me there. I know it. So I'm going to go practice this. I'm going to do this cue. You take this little cue, and it's like a baby bird that you found on the ground, and you cup it in your hands, and you make sure that you get all the crud off the claws and everything like that, and make sure its little legs aren't hurt. And then you take it back home, and before you get to go throw and work with it, you put it in a nice cardboard box, you put a light bulb, warm it up, and you feed it you mush up little seed stuff, and you put it in the syringe and you feed it to it, and this is what's happening in your mind. Like, you're just taking care of this little cue. That I'm going to take this cue, I'm going to take this adorable little fluffy cue that I fed and raised, and I'm going to take this to the throwing field, and when I finally get to practice it, it's going to spread its wings, and it's going to fly, and it's going to take me all the way to 40 feet. And it just doesn't fucking happen that way. It just doesn't happen. It's never like one thing, bam, it's like, oh man, I'm consistently there. You may get a cue one time, and you may pop one out over the distance you've been praying to get, 40 feet, let's say. It may happen that way. But you're not going to consistently get there because of that one cue, because of that cue with a couple of practices. Just not going to happen. So there wasn't like the Eureka thing for me. It was just, and I said this in a comment back to him, it was no real single moment. Like when I was able to do the things I had worked on I'm reading. I had worked on consistently and unconsciously. That was the basics of it. Is I knew after all those years that, let's say when I like gliding, I knew that I needed to unseat and push through my heel. I knew that I needed to stay a little lower. I knew that I needed to reach with my left foot. And I knew that I needed to reload and get that right knee turned and stay on the ball of that foot and stay wrapped. And then I knew all that stuff, but I never did it all in the same throw. Like I never did all that. So when I started doing 75% of those things almost every time I threw, like if there's 4 major cues, if I did 3 of them in a throw, I would probably throw over that number. And those things just become more automatic. So it's thoughtful progression, and it's understanding that there are multiple moving parts to that throw. and that you're not just going to get one cue and fix it. It's that you have to do the right thing generally for a long time. In several portions of the throw, you have to do the right things generally, so it's more likely that you do a higher percentage of those things right when it's time to throw. That's a convoluted sentence, but it makes total fucking sense, and you know it. You practice until you're doing a higher percentage of the things you need to do right in every throw. And then those things become more automatic. And then that's when like you can add new cues into it to be like, okay, this can fix that one little part and can work on that. And you may get some distance about it, but really what you're trying to get is you're not trying to just hit a number, and like a PR is important. As a PR is super important. But the PR is your ceiling, and your floor needs to get higher. Your shitty throws need to get better. This isn't anything I've created. This isn't a concept I've created. This is just the way it is. That you need it to be so your worst throw is 40 feet. And then the upside is well beyond what you imagine you could do to begin with. So, no Eureka moment. I would say maybe the most helpful thing in the glide, though, if I'm going to just cheat and say maybe there was a cue, and don't take this as the thing if you're a glider, I think the most important thing was after you unseat and you kick, to get your drive leg, my right leg, turned towards your right. Like get it turned in the air. Get your knee, foot, and by extension your hip turned to the right. Don't let your foot land pointing backwards. Land cocked and loaded and stay wrapped. Re-wrap that, but I mean that's turning that like that drive leg, getting that turn, man, that was big. That led to more consistency by far. And in the spin, any rotational thing, like the full spin, it was a lot about for again getting out over my left as a right-handed thrower, out of the back, like getting like watch Ryan Krauser throw a shot. You know what I mean? Like out of the back, he really like leans and pushes his hips and his weight and shifts his weight way to the left. So that gives him like this big arc that he can throw through and helps him actually drive the shot more straight down the pipe. That was a big one in the Stone, and that came from the Pirate Captain Hayden Ballieu. That was a big part of working with him on that. But yeah, it was a lot of little things. If I had to call out the cues that made him consistent, maybe that. So Brandon Poe says, what, if any, differences should there be in standing throws between a spinner or glider? Really good question. Obviously go with the one, throws further. But you always enjoy my technical explanations. Well, sorry, I got drunk before this. What, if any, differences should there be in standing throws between a spinner or a glider? Okay, look, we're going to in a little bit of a rabbit hole here, because if we are talking pure throwing, pure shot put style throwing, yes, there is a difference between the way a shot put thrower who is a glider should approach a standing throw as opposed to a spinning shot put thrower. A rotational shot put thrower, let's say, because we have different styles, and that's going to translate to us. We don't all throw the full spin. So there's really only two styles, though, right? There's the MSA, Modified South African, and the full. There's some degrees in between, whatever. Yes, they are going to be different. A glider is going to want to take a wider stance on their standing throw because that's where they land when they glide. If you look at somebody who knows how to glide at a basic level and somebody who knows how to rotate at a basic level, the glider is going to land with a wider base in his feet than the spinner is going to. And that's the long and short of it. So if you have two throwers that are different styles, and they're gonna work on their standing throw, in a pure sense, when you're trying to work on technical proficiency, the thrower that is the glider, she should throw with a wider stance, and the thrower that is a rotator should throw the spinner, the rotator, should throw her standing throw with a more narrow stance. That's the basics of it. There's a lot of small foot position things in there as well. But is that necessarily what we need to do in the Highland Games? Some of that depends on your level of granularity, right? Like how far down the rabbit hole have you gotten with throwing, how technical you are, how new you are, what kind of things you're working on. The difference also is that we have a standing throw event where you need to maximize your standing throw. And the standing throw for an athlete who is doing like an open style throw, as we would call it, or like a shot put, and just throwing in a shot put ring and they have free reign to move how they want. Well, the standing throw is a means to an end. The standing throw is a tool. It's a variation of their throw, or a drill if you want to call it that. I would rather call it a variation of the throw because you're taking something away or adding something in a variation, but you're still throwing. So that's a variation for them. It's something that's meant to work on something else. Now, some coaches like myself but also in track and field, are going to use the standing throw as an index for power production, for, to see as an index for what their full throw, how to track that along with it, what they can add with the motion and everything. So that is part of it. But in general, the standing throw is a tool. It is a tool to build the full throw. And it's to work on a particular portion, a section of the full throw. So should we do that in the Highland Games? If you are way down, again, if you're way down the rabbit hole in shot put and stone throwing, and you've got the technical training and the know-how, and you're going to gain something from working on the specific standing throw, then yeah, you should probably do that. But you're probably going to get more bang for your buck trying to optimize your Braemar throw, which is, by track and field standards, a very heavy implement. You're better off trying to maximize that and using a style of throw, which is generally going to be a wider stance with a little bit more lateral drive towards the toe board. That gives you more room to be dynamic and more room to impart force to the implement instead of a standing throw. Is that an absolute? No. There are now people that have been rotationally throwing the open stone or the shot put for a long time. They're going to have a better standing throw that more, when their standing throw style more closely correlates to what their power position in the rotational throw is. So they may throw a better Braemar a little closer together, a little bit more like they're landed rotationally, like a little bit more of a thin blade that they're standing on, like generally the heel of the drive leg lined up with the toe of the post leg. You want to do that in both styles, but in the spin style, more narrow, that's really important because you have to have the hips open to do that because you're more narrow. And the glide, you can get away with being a little bit more parallel, but I personally don't. Because again, we're trying to maximize, that's the major point that I'm getting at here, is that we're trying to maximize the distance with a heavy implement with our standing throw. So I would work, if you're doing your Braemar standing throw, and don't do it with a 30-pound stone or anything, even if you're doing like your, 16 to 18 pound up to 20 pounds if you want to. 18 pounds a great stone for men, by the way. Going like 2 pounds above your open stone weight, a pound or two above your open stone weight to do your heavy stone or your Braemar stone work. Men, women, masters, whatever, that's a great tool to use, by the way. Heavy stones, they have some application, and they are very heavy stones, some application like 20 plus, some application, but generally it's just making sure you're familiar with the stuff. But you're better off working on that, working on your Braemar throw and getting good, because it's 2 events you have to compete in. Now, if you got the time and you got the inclination, yeah, specialize your standing throw and how you should do it. But yes, broadly speaking, however you throw, if you throw glide, generally you should try to have your feet land the way that you land in the glide, because you're going to get a little bit more specificity out of that movement. And same with the rotational. You should try to, watching film, you should try to see how you land when you spin properly into your power position. You should try to emulate that with your standing throw. But I would say for 90%, 95%, maybe 99% of Highland Games athletes, just work on getting a good standing throw so you can translate that to Braemar, and that's usually going to mean a wider stance, stagger your feet, heel and toe lined up, back leg a little bit, back leg, whatever, heel of the rear leg lined up with the toe of the front leg, a little bit of wider stance, and really drive and get yourself some lateral push on that thing. So that's like I said, I was going to be a rabbit hole, man. I'm sorry. Tuck Graham says, for Braemar, being right-handed, I know my right leg hip is important, but what do I do with my left leg, if anything at all? Thanks. My first response was, conventional wisdom is to inject it with a nerve block before a competition. And still probably would be pretty cool. Let's take a bunch of drugs and it'll accomplish the same thing. You don't know which side of your body it's going to hit if you take the right kind of drugs, though. So, what do I do with my left leg? What do I do with my post leg? It's a tougher question than you'd believe. And it's one of those things like I didn't know to worry about it as much until like way later on, like years in, and I was kind of already doing it okay. So it's kind of like I cheat moded the way into it. I just kind of dumbassed my way into it being okay. So I kind of had to backwards engineer, like when I dealt with other athletes, I had to backwards engineer what worked. Why this particular thing works. Sometimes that happens. Like when I was coaching CrossFit, like there were certain things like, what was it? There were certain movements like handstand push-ups or like handstand walking. Like I got them, like they made sense. So it was actually a little tougher to teach those because I didn't have to struggle for them as much. And this is a very bad analogy to a left leg and stone throwing, because if you watch a lot of my old stone throws or whatever, there's plenty of shitty left leg stuff going on. But on a standing throw, right? Is he talking about a standing throw? For Braemar, yeah. In general, as the right hip, I'm going to go back to our conversation from earlier, as this is not a mini episode, by the way, this is going on forever because we're talking technical shit. But as the drive leg, in your case, Tuck being right-handed, your right leg, as it's initiating and pushing you and you're extending up on the right side, you should see the way I like sit in my seat when I say extending too. I do like a stone motion with my hand. It's really fucking obnoxious. Whereas you're extending up, that right hip is coming forward and that left hip is ever so slightly traveling back. Right? Both hips are coming up. You can't really send one hip up without the other. You can try, but you can't. So, your hips are going to be rising at the same time. So your left leg will be extending if you keep a connection to the ground, which you should. So as you're beginning that drive with your right, and then when you initiate with the rest of the throw, you're going to get a natural shift of weight onto your left momentarily. Like it's going to shift onto your left. You're going to get your weight balanced. And then but the cool thing is, as you're rotating, you continue to push with that right. Your left won't just continue like standing you straight up. Your left will continue. You will continue to like extending that left leg. That's not the best way to say it. I guess it does kind of stand you straight up. So I'll take that back. But as you continue dragging through that right leg, that left leg will continue to extend. But you stay connected with that because you've shifted that weight towards it. Like it's not just floating there anymore like it was at the start. So there's weight pushing in with both feet. You're kind of, for a moment, you're on top of your hips. You're balanced. And that left leg extends and pushes the other hip back more. The left hip back more because the right hip is rotating forward. Again, you can't, if you just sent both hips forward, you would just be falling forward on crumbled knees, right? Or if you sent both hips backward, you'd just be jumping straight backwards where you stand. So when you have a concert of one side of the hips moving forward, one side of your body moving forward, and the other side moving as well, it's going to move the opposite direction because it's all connected, right? It's, spine bone's connected to the pelvis bone. And it's like you're turning that whole system. You're turning that whole thing. So as you extend the right, the left leg should also the left leg should extend, but it's going to hit extension a little faster, if that makes sense. So think about the position you're in, that you're bent way over your right? Your right is kind of tucked up. You could be maybe as close as 90 degrees, like whatever, depending on your style of throwing, how far you go back. But the right leg, your back leg is really bent, but your left leg is already close to straight. And as you transfer, it's not like you're squatting down onto your left. You're making a transit across and up. And this is hard with that video, by the way. Just using language to describe throwing when you're drunk. This is fantastic. But that left leg should extend and push the left hip up and back a little bit. Like kind of up and back is the best way to say it. Really back more than anything else. But because you're already naturally kind of coming up. But that left leg, as you reach the point where you extend and you deliver, that left leg should be posted in the ground. Should be like right at the moment where you're kind of creating like the maximum velocity towards release. That left leg should be posted for a split second in the ground. And a lot of times you'll see that to where because you started a standing throw with the outside blade of your left foot against the toe board. Your foot is kind of parallel with the toe board, and you'll see throwers where they extend and that foot is still in that position even though their hips are facing where they're throwing. So their foot's like at a 90-degree angle to their hip because they've got their weight on that left and they've extended at that moment of impact right there before they have to reverse, before they have to come forward. So your left, it's not like it's actively doing anything. I guess that's a long way around to get to what you're actually asking. Your left isn't actively doing much. But what you need to be doing is you need to be sensing something with your left leg. You need to be sensing because the left leg and the left hip are a great way to, what's the best way? To diagnose if you're getting the right amount of push and if you're coming around and if you've got a good path. Like if your right is coming through, if your right side, your power side is coming through, it's a great way to diagnose. And if you watch video, if your left never gets to a moment where it extends and posts, and you'll hear that word a lot, like it's because it's like a fence post in the ground to your left side. If you don't have that, then you probably timed wrong and you probably opened up your upper body too soon. Right? If you probably opened up and initiated the throw and leaned over your post leg too much, you put too much weight on it because you're leaning forward, you're tilting your head towards where you're throwing, you opened up too fast, and you have so much weight on that left leg that you cannot extend it all the way. So it's a great way to diagnose. And if you're throwing and your left foot comes off the ground, then you just stayed way too far back. Not a problem I see very often or ever really. But let's theoretically, like if you just stayed way too far back and laid too far back and you had no weight, your left would just not have any oomph to it and would not post. So you'd be it'd be like throwing a fadeaway jump shot. And you know what? You do see that, honestly. Not as stark as I was saying there, but when people throw like a standing throw or even like an open stone and they end up like falling away like a fadeaway jump shot, that usually means that they didn't post on their left or they kept their weight a little too far back or their timing was just off getting to the front. So, but much more common that you're going to dump your front side, your post side forward, and you're going to kind of just throw from a bent left leg. So it shouldn't actively be doing much unless it's actively deficient in that area, but it's a great way to diagnose what's going on, if that makes any sense. I should just say that to everyone. If that makes any sense, it's like a great, like bullshit, insecure insurance policy, in case you're wrong. If that makes any sense, maybe I just explained it bad. Maybe we're just fucking wrong, man. Who is this? JR asked, how the hell do I learn to move? I don't know, man. Just go and like until, and then remember what you did when you went that made it go far, maybe farther one time, and then do that again. You learn to move by fucking throwing, dude. But also the way you learn to move is by paying attention to the movement and not the result. And I would guess a lot of people out there can identify with this problem. And I talk about this in Heavy Light and everywhere else if I can, because it's such a big deal. It's like we suffer from go out and throw disease in this fucking sport. Like not go out and practice. You don't focus on quality of your movement or quality of your throw or what you're doing. You focus on like, did I get the number I wanted? Or am I like hitting, like I'm feeling good, I should be able to throw my PR today. Like, no, you probably fucking won't. But if you throw 93% of it, you should be stoked because you threw that in practice while you were working on stuff. That's great. But that's how you learn to move, man. You focus on the movement. You focus on the quality of the movement. You try to throw pretty. Try to throw pretty. If I can give you any like stupid single like one-liner advice, just try to throw pretty. Stop caring in practice as much about how far it goes and try to throw pretty. Try to throw like the people that you watch on YouTube and Instagram and all the classics. Try to throw like those people. Try to throw don't worry about where it goes when you're done. Try to make parts of your throw look like what those people look like. Like if you like the way my right foot looks during stone, try to make it look like mine. If you like the way Spencer Tyler hits his extension, if you like the way he strikes the stone, try to look like that when you do it. Don't stress about us not going as far. Like focus on the quality of the movement. That's how you learn to move. That's the best advice I can give, man. And then don't be a fucking, an iron giant in the weight room or whatever. Well, he could fly. That's not the greatest example, but don't be so old school and stuck in your ways in the weight room that you don't jump and you don't bound and you don't throw med balls and you don't do conditioning circuits and you don't do flexibility. You don't do work on your mobility and flexibility. Like, that's how you build agility. You know, fucking do agility ladders, man, for God's sake. Like, I'm not yelling at you, JR. I'm sure you do lots of cool stuff, but I'm just saying in general, it's a very dude problem that I run across. So all you dudes out there, when I say dude or man, it's you I'm talking to, is, yeah, you can't just expect to squat, bench, deadlift slowly, even big numbers, and then expect that you can move. You have to train movement. You have to train quality of movement, and you have to do it in the weight room too. You have to jump. You have to do footwork. You have to bound. You have to jump up and down. You have to jump up. You have to jump sideways and sideways too. Broadly, highly, sidewaysly. You have to jump all those ways. You have to move your feet. You have to throw med balls. You have to be mobile. You have to move weight dynamically. You have to do Olympic lifts. You have to do overhead work. You have to do all this stuff, man. Like, that makes you able to move. Yeah, that's how you learn to move, dude. All right, last one. Any advice for easing back into the rotation after a metatarsal fracture? Training technique cues to minimize wear and tear. This kind of plays into, I just realized, to the last question where he talked about he's got lots of play in his knees, like some injury-prone knees, not necessarily hurt knees, but same thing here. Metatarsal fracture. Let it heal, like, completely. If you have rehab work you're supposed to be doing, to fix your foot, then you should do that before you start worrying about throwing in the Highland Games. Honest to God. Because if you come back 6 weeks before you're fully recovered just because you want to get into throwing and you want to compete again, what if you hurt it again and then you're out for another 3 months or 4 months because of it? Or what if you exacerbate or get it worse and then you can't throw for longer? So a lot of times we have a cult of, we got a cult of tough guy bullshit in our sport, just like any other strength sport where, hey, you got to power through that. No, you fucking don't. I know how many of you motherfuckers are making any money doing this, and no, you don't. If you're hurt, you don't. Just rest. Literally rest and do whatever. If you have a physical therapist or you're smart enough as an athlete yourself to know how to rehab an injury, do that before you start worrying about powering through. Now, I do like that you use the word easing back. And there's H.D. McGraw, is this guy's name? Bryce. I'm not, again, when you ask these questions, guys, you're just basically like holding a big bullseye for me to throw bullshit at. But I'm not just yelling at you, obviously. I'm not mad at you. I'm not. Hey. But easing into it is the right way to do it. But if you're experienced with injuries, you will know the difference between stiffness and soreness that comes from using an area that's freshly recovered and has been worked on, or has just lost some spring or lost mobility or has just scar tissue, all that kind of stuff. You'll know the feeling, the difference between that and, oh shit, I'm riding on the ragged edge of more damage right here. You'll know the difference if you're experienced enough. If you're not, err on the side of caution. For the love of God, just err on the side of caution. Especially feet, dude. Fuck, feet are the worst to hurt. Because you got to use them kind of all the time. Unless you get one of those sweet-ass scooters, then just steal one of those from the grocery store, you're set. But you have to use your feet all the time. Sorry, Walmart's got the best ones, right? Who's got the best scooter? See, the grocery store here, H-E-B, has got really nice ones. I wonder who's got the best quality scooters you can steal from a retail establishment. Hit me up with that. Hit me up with your opinions on that. But you have to use your feet all the time. And foot injuries fucking suck. It's just like shoulder injuries, just like wrists, elbows, just like it's shit you use all the time. It's really hard to recover that. Do not rush it. If that just comes down to you doing empty-handed footwork, do that. Because guess what? That's something that athletes need to do all the time anyway. And they don't. So you could almost use this as the time to force yourself to do empty-handed footwork and visualization work that you're not doing otherwise, because you get excited about putting an implement in your hand because it's fucking cooler and you can take Instagram videos of it. But it's not as cool, it's not as sexy to do empty-handed footwork, to visualize your stuff, to do things in slow motion, to do them backwards with empty hand footwork. Like, it's not as cool to do that. It is cool to me. If you want to be cool to me, do fucking drills. That's fucking cool. But, it's not as sexy, but it's a really good way. And why not utilize this time to take the load off of those feet so you're not throwing 28, 56, 16, 22 pounds, whatever, 42, whatever it is you're throwing. Like, maybe use this time to work on getting yourself sharp technically. So you're not loading it up with all that weight. So when you do add the weight back, hey, all of a sudden, well, weird, I'm not in as many bad positions anymore because I worked on being in good positions. That's a really good one to end it on right there. That's pretty good. So I think that's the bulk of the question. I'm sorry if I missed anything there. I'm sorry if I missed your question. You should have got to me 2 tequilas earlier. By the way, they're not tequilas. I'm not just like having like they make it sound like popsicles. I mixed up, they're little home mixed margaritas, fresh lime juice, a little bit tequila, a little bit of blue curacao, a little bit of fresh lime juice, a few ice cubes. Fantastic. So yeah, you should have gotten me before those delicious drinks if you wanted to get your question answered, but I'm pretty sure I got to everybody there. If you are interested in all this kind of bullshit and you want to have me yell this at you all the time and email you programming, either for throwing, the weight room, or both, go to mikebeach.com, click on the coaching link. I do offer throws programming year-round. Every week you get throws programming in your inbox, and that will get you through an entire season, and it's broken down into off-season, preseason, in-season, and peak season. So in peak season is kind of dependent on the athlete right there, depending on when they want to peak for games and stuff. And then there's also weight room programming, which is broken down similarly. And it is 100%, it's the only program out there that is 100% geared towards Highland Games athletes. Towards making you a better Highland Games athlete, making you a better thrower across 9 events. Or 8 events if you're across the pond. But to make you a better Highland Games athlete, that's what it's for. Will it incidentally make you stronger, faster, maybe look a little bit better? Probably if you do it, yeah. But the reason it was written to me is to make you a better Highland Games thrower. So that stuff is out there. I did my due diligence. I put in the things I had to do. I actually advertised for myself, which I'm generally pretty, as much bullshit as I put out there, I'm generally pretty terrible about saying the stuff that I actually offer. So there it is. All right, it's been real. We'll do another one of these with the other events, but when we get into weights for distance, God help us, because there's so much going on in those stupid events. Heavy Light is brought to you by Throw Bros. Throw Bros is the only online store for Highland Games athletes. Gear up, get throwing. Use code HEAVYLIGHT, all one word. You're going to save 10% at throwbros.com.